this is such an interesting story. And if you have children, grandchildren, or anyone you know, please call them. Tell them to watch the television right now, because this is one of those stories where I think young people are into a habit that they don't realize is dangerous. Now, the SABC story about the dangers of bubbly, also known as a hookah pipe, has gained huge traction on social media. And this, of course, comes after health experts sounded the alarm about bubbly being a silent killer. Now, smokers of this bubbly are at risk of developing diseases such as cancer, heart and respiratory diseases, as well as adverse effects during pregnancy. Now, bubbly smoking is becoming more and more popular, especially among young people, and particularly during social events. And according to the World Health Organization, one smoking session of bubbly can equate to smoking, get this, 100 or more cigarettes. Let's just repeat that. One session, this is according to the World Health Organization, one smoking session of bubbly can equate to smoking 100 or more cigarettes. So to help us discuss the effects of smoking bubbly, we're joined in studio by SABC News reporter Silwane Kakao, as well as joining us virtually, the head of the school and director of the Africa Center for Tobacco Industry Monitoring and Policy Research, School of Health Systems and Public Health at the University of Pretoria, Professor Olalekan Ayo Yusuf. Professor, thanks for your time, and thanks, Silwane, for coming through as well. So let me start with you, Silwane. This story, for obvious reason, has gained great traction. But what drew you to the story?
Well, thank you very much, Sakina. And also let me take this opportunity to greet all the SABC News viewers and also the Morning Live viewers. So the first thing that made me have interest in telling this story was that, first of all, I took notice in terms of how many young people are smoking bubbly. And I noticed that most of them are smoking it just because it looks cool. If you ask them why they're smoking bubbly, well, I haven't gotten any other reason except the fact that it's a cool thing, it's a fashion statement, and it really just makes you look like a cool kid. And so I naturally thought, because this one time I noticed I was at some establishment and there was this huge smoke, and it was obviously the smoke of bubbly. And I thought to myself, with so much smoke there, I'm just wondering how much a person who's not smoking it, but is sitting next to them, is smoking it, secondary smoking. And then I thought, well, what about that particular person is actually smoking it? And I thought, let me do some research into this. And when I did the research, I saw shocking results.
And this is something that's been described as a silent killer. But as you say, you saw all of these young people. And apart from just looking cool, were you able to establish how they started and why, particularly, apart from just being cool? Did some of them see this as an alternative to cigarettes and maybe think because they're not actually, smoking a cigarette, this might not be as harmful?
So remember, after there was a bill, it's currently still in Parliament, and after the direct marketing of tobacco products was banned, they couldn't advertise on your mainstream media, and so they lost sales with about 30%. And so we understand from the experts that most of the people who left buying cigarettes and the other tobacco products were young people. And so young people then naturally saw a gap of saying, maybe we can go more to bubbly. Remember now, bubbly was now being indirectly advertised and promoted as less harmful compared to other tobacco products such as cigarettes and all the other products. And so young people became drawn to bubbly because they were given the impression that it's less harmful and it's not as dangerous.
So, Professor, just coming to the dangers, because it's unfortunate that there is this perception that this is perhaps not as harmful because perhaps it tastes good because they talk about the flavors that they actually consume. But talk to us about what it is that they are actually consuming when young people engage in smoking this bubbly.
Thank you. Indeed, it is a very dangerous habit because it has lots of toxins in it. So just imagine, humbly, you've got the charcoal and you've got the tobacco that is burning. So in addition to tobacco burning and the tar that you get, you have extra toxins coming from the charcoal, and that's mostly carbon monoxide. So it's literally putting your mouth in a car exhaust and actually pulling that into your lungs on a regular basis. And that's got also heavy metals and other toxins that goes right into your lungs. So it's actually an extremely dangerous habit that young people have not realized. And unfortunately, because of the social media and the fact that this is even more social, using the social settings by young people, but oftentimes you find at least 3 to 5 people around just one hobby. So it just makes it easier for them to use that. And of course, because of the volume of smoke, when even you leave the room, anybody that comes into that room thereafter will still be exposed to a large volume of toxins. So it's about the volume and the time of exposure that is pretty dangerous.
And, again, Salwane, did you have opportunity to actually speak to some of these young people? So what did they actually say to you?
We interviewed this one gentleman. He's 30 years old, and we asked him what just about the journey of his life in terms of smoking bubbly, because he was in ICU for about 10 days. And this is what stood out for me. So he said when he was admitted, the doctors, without even knowing his story in terms of whether he smokes or not, the doctors told him, you smoke, and you smoke bubbly. And he said it's because the doctors were looking at the results of the x-ray. They could see that his chest was full of blood and water. And he was also saying that his lungs also had holes. And this is why the doctors immediately knew that it's not cigarette, it's not weed, it's not any other drug, it's bubbly, because the doctors have obviously seen these cases before he was a patient.
I mean, that is so scary, Prof. But of course, again, you said something that is so hair-raising that it's like putting your mouth to an exhaust pipe. And yet our young people still don't understand. And from what Salwane is just describing, the condition that the young men presented with, the physiological impact that this has, how do we bring that home to young people? Because when it comes to cigarettes, you have all these warnings. Smoking cigarettes can cause lung cancer, this, that, and the other. They put these gruesome pictures up now. But when it comes to vaping, when it comes to bubbly, it seems very fashionable at the moment.
Yes, indeed. It seems fashionable. I think we can continue to raise the awareness among young people. For example, many people think you can actually clean the smoke, or they actually feel the smoke is actually cleaned when it goes through water. You cannot launder a smoke because most of those toxins are not water soluble. So they are actually still in the vapor phase, and you actually inhale all of that. Yeah. So it's a lot of deceit that once it passes through water, you're actually inhaling clean smoke. So it's a lot of awareness that we have to do. But secondly, as earlier noted, the current bill needs to be passed as a matter of urgency. The establishment themselves, because actually the current law in South Africa actually prohibits indoor smoking. But you go to many of these clubs, you find a lot of hopeless smoking, even they're not smoking cigarettes. So it's either the establishment themselves are ignorant, or they know that they're actually breaking the law and nobody's enforcing the law. So my immediate recommendation is not to go after the smokers, but actually the establishments, to ensure that they enforce or they obey the current law of not smoking indoor, because it's purely smoking indoor and they're breaking the law. And I think that would take away the excitement from and the fashion of using bubbly as a start. Because even those who are not using bubbly that goes to this club, they're actually at danger because they're actually inhaling a large volume of secondhand smoke.
And people are doing this at homes. You know, even parents, I don't think, are alive to the dangers inherent in this because, as you said, Prof, I think even as parents, we think, oh, maybe because we see water as part of the offering, that there may be some sort of cleansing happening of the harmful toxins, which is not the case. So how do we bring that message home to parents as well? And I'm just worried that are we sitting here with another huge, pandemic that's about to hit us with our young people who will be collapsing en masse because of the sheer volumes of consumption of this thing?
Yes, we've actually seen between 2018, we've done this national survey, and this bubbly use is prevalent among those between the age 16 and 24. And it has increased from 6% in 2018 to 16% in 2021. That is about one out of every 5 16 to 24-year-old actually uses bubbly. And that is a massive increase. So, and that translates to over 1 million youth between the age of 16 and 24 that use bubbly. So when we do surveys, if we do not ask specifically about bubbly, you might think the increase in smoking is related to cigarettes, but it's actually bubbly that is adding to that increase that we've observed in recent times. So we are really sitting with a potential epidemic. Because once you smoke, because the lung pipe also means you have to draw with a lot of effort to your lungs, and that begins to weaken your lungs. And what we call forced expiratory volume, your ability to expire air, which you need when you need to breathe, it starts to decrease because you've been pulling on this long pipe for a very long time, and that's why they end up in ICU.
My word. Silwane, the case studies that you spoke to, were you able to establish how long it took from the time that they started, the young man who ended up in ICU, from the time that he started smoking bubbly until he ended up in hospital? How long was that?
So, Sakina, I managed to speak to different smokers of bubbly and also the experts. So what I established was that it depends. It varies from person to person. Remember that other people may have underlying medical conditions. Some are not even aware that they have underlying medical conditions. Say, for example, a person who's got asthma and you are inhaling all that smoke. It will definitely affect you differently than it would the next person who doesn't have underlying medical conditions. And just to go back to your previous question that you asked to Prof now, some of these packages of the bubbly flavors are actually written outside that bubbly causes different kinds of cancers, and it also causes heart diseases, but they're still buying it.
Oh, my
word. The message
word.
is there, but they're still buying it. So people are just deliberately choosing to be ignorant. But then again, remember, it goes back to what I said, that indirect marketing and indirect advertising and promoting of these products as though they are less harmful than your cigarettes and other tobacco products.
So the people that you spoke to, after learning just how dangerous and harmful this practice is, what did they say? Did it shock them in some sort of way? Did it move them to perhaps try considering quitting?
Absolute shock. I received different kinds of responses. Some, the videos went viral. After we did the story, they went viral. And then other people were taken to social media to take out their reactions. Some were burning those bubblies Some were throwing them away. Some of the parents were now making sure that their kids don't leave the house without checking what's inside their school bags. And some, on the other hand, are still pretty determined that I'm going to smoke hubbly. It's not harmful. It hasn't done anything to me. But then again, this is something interesting. The gentleman that we interviewed on our story was once upon a time that person who was in denial. Somebody posted a story about having lost a younger brother because of smoking hubbly bubbly. And they posted something just to create awareness. And he commented, he said, well, if it's killing him, bring it to me then, because it's doing nothing to me. Little did he know that today he would be sitting here telling his story because he was in ICU. So we don't want to see more people, young people, being these cases, these case studies that we go to interview because they were in denial when they shown the truth, when they were educated and informed about the dangers of smoking hubbly bubbly and vaping.
Professor, in terms of how addictive hubbly bubbly is it the same as smoking cigarettes, vaping, all of that? Is it a similar sort of profile in that regard?
Yes, it is same thing. It contains nicotine, perhaps even more nicotine. And the general physiological process of addiction follows. Basically, if you use it for long enough, you develop tolerance and you want to take more. And before you know it, you can't stay without it. So it follows the same trajectory like any other addiction. And sometimes they need help from experts to help them quit obvious smoking. But importantly, you do also have people who can do it on their own without help, as we've found out in South Africa. I mean, I've ran cessation clinic for almost 11 years, and I've seen many people, as was said earlier on, people come in with their kids not knowing that there was actually tobacco smoking because they just thought it was a flavor, and they do this at home, which makes it very dangerous, particularly if it's a young person, because their lungs are still developing and their brains are still developing, so they are plastic and easy to get addicted.
Well,
the same thing for pregnant women. We've had miscarriages, and they never knew it was because of the bubbly, because they said, I don't smoke cigarettes, I only use bubbly. Yeah. They did not know they were actually taking more nicotine and more toxins in their body.
Wow. You know what? These revelations, absolutely shocking, but I'm glad we had an opportunity to actually highlight it. And so do the right thing. Don't be scared, parents. Break it. You'll face the consequences later. Really, if you listen to what Prof is saying, if you listen to Silwane's story, if you listen to what the World Health Organization is saying, there's no place for this. We are killing our young people. But thanks so much to our guest, SABC reporter Silwane Khachau. And also we were joined virtually by Director of the Africa Center for Tobacco Industry Monitoring and Policy Research at the University of Pretoria, Professor Ayo Yusuf, and talking there about the dangers of hubbly bubbly or the hookah pipe. Let us know your thoughts all the same.